Laugh at the cringe, learn from the crumble. This is Cringe and Crumble. Welcome to the podcast where honesty meets humor and the messy parts of life finally get their spotlight. I'm your host, Tranisha, and here we dive into dating, friendships, healing, and all the awkward in-betweens. Because here's the truth. Growth isn't always pretty, but it's always real. So let's get into it. You know the moment when nothing technically happened, but you feel the shift? Their text starts slowing down a bit, the energy starts changing, the plans that you're trying to schedule seem to never align with them. So now you're thinking to yourself, yeah, the math ain't mathin'. Yeah, welcome back to Cringe and Crumble. I'm your host, Tranisha, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about what's the next move when you feel the shift? Because here, the shift is where a lot of us lose the plot, and we're not going to be doing that today. Today is going to be secure moves only. Okay, so let's start off with a quick check-in. When you feel the shift, are we moving secure or are we about to spiral? Because spiraling has a very specific look, and I know that we all have at least done one of these things that I'm about to talk about. You know, when you start performing for attention, you start sending those funny texts, those chill texts, then that accidental double text, and then you're like, wait a minute, oops, I didn't really mean to send it. Yes, you did. We all know we did. And then you start over-explaining yourself and your needs to someone who doesn't even show you consistent effort. You even offer up different options for dinner because you know what? They won't ever pick one. One of my favorite ones is that you accept a last-minute invitation because in our world, we're thinking to ourselves, at least they asked. And another of my favorite is that when we decide to be investigation discovery detectives because we're looking for context, right? We're looking for their views and their likes and who they are actually following, what they posted and what time they were online. Yeah, this is stalkerish behavior, and this is when spiral is actually taking control of your life. But let's look at the flip side. What do those secure moves look like? This is where you actually pause. You stop feeding confusion with that extra energy. You ask for direction once, and it's very clear, and you observe their behavior, not their potential. And if their effort drops, you de-escalate access without drama. You're just going to take a little bit of a step back. Because secure isn't cold, secure is actually clear. And honestly, spiraling feels like action, but it's really just self-abandonment in motion. I wanted to bring this to our attention because I once dated a guy during COVID, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, he has it all, right? He's tall, he's gorgeous, he's very funny, intelligent, and he checked all those boxes on my checklist. That's when I had a checklist, but not anymore. And he was actually really funny too, but in a very quirky way, which I actually felt really safe with. And I kind of liked it a lot because it allowed me to be myself. And for a while, it was really good. We were going out, he wined me, we dined, we had great experiences. It just felt like I could actually be. And for a moment, it actually did feel like it could actually be something. But over time, what I felt was the shift. His communication started changing. The text turnaround times became so long. The responses got even vaguer. He even stopped talking about the future that we once talked about before. And he didn't make time for me like he used to. And immediately, I started to spiral. And I started asking myself, is he seeing someone else? Because what is happening? Like, did I do something wrong? Did I say something? What is this problem? Like, I have no idea. And then when I asked him directly, he would say, oh, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. Well, how guys like to do. But it really wasn't. So to gain his attention back, I started over-communicating. I started doing those excessive texts. I would check in. I just tried to do anything that I could to make myself front and center for him. And it would work for a second, I'm not going to lie. And he would come back and give me that little attention that I craved. And things would feel like they were back to how they used to be. And then they weren't. It became like this tug of war with us, right? Because I'm reaching for him, but then he's retreating back. As I'm panicking, he's minimizing. And I remember having this moment where I was like, wait a minute. What is wrong with me, right? Why am I spiraling like this? Like, seriously, why am I spiraling? And that's what we're getting into today, because why do we spiral when we feel the shift? And I'm going to talk about this because spiraling usually comes from 3 different places. And one of those places is the thought loop. What happens here is that the shift triggers a story, for instance. They don't care is when your brain starts to collect receipts to prove it. And then it sounds like he's taking longer. Okay, so he's losing interest. Okay, so I must be getting played. Which basically, in this cycle, is where the emotional reactivity and confirmation bias feelings become a fact, and then I start to build a case. Another place where we spiral is our nervous system alarm. This is where inconsistency equals uncertainty, and uncertainty can read as danger to our body. So think about it like this. Old experience can activate, so you're not just reacting to him, you're reacting to what this reminds you of. So the way this shows up inside of you is that it becomes this fight or flight mode. For instance, you start over-texting, even overthinking, because your body isn't asking for that clarity, it's just begging for that safety. And another way that this shows up is in this one particular place that we overlook, which is the unsaid need. So what happens here is that you want something real, but you're scared to name it, so you try to earn it with performance. Or you want reassurance, but you ask for it indirectly by checking in or something. And the reason why you're doing this is because instead of you stating your need or my need, I start trying to deserve it, which looks like overcommunication, people pleasing, and even tolerating breadcrumbs. And this is where becoming secure starts, right? Because once I realized why I'm spiraling, I also realized nothing was wrong with me. My nervous system was trying to protect me, and my brain was just trying to regain control. And my heart was just trying to avoid that rejection that I've had so many times in the past. But I want you to understand that becoming secure is when you stop letting panic take control of you. And secure isn't pretending you don't care, but secure is just caring, just without abandoning yourself. So instead of spiraling, here's what I had to practice. First, I had to learn how to regulate before I respond, because I don't make moves from anxiety and I don't send texts from the pit of my stomach. If I feel activated, I pause, I breathe, and I do something that brings me back into my body, which for me is a beach walk, but could also be for you journaling, voice notes, you name it. But I give myself enough space to choose a response that I still respect today. So secondly, what I do is I replace that chasing with data, which I also like to call facts. Because spiraling fills in those blanks with imagination, and secure moves collect that information. So secure moves observes the behavior. If the effort drops, I stop overfunctioning and I'm going to step back. And I'm not going to keep carrying a connection with someone who doesn't even give me the bare minimum. So I'm going to watch what happens when I stop doing the most. And another thing I like to do is I make a clean ask and I respect their answer. This is not a long monologue. This is just a clean ask. It's something like, I'm free on Thursday or Friday, so do you want to get together? Or I like you and I move best with clear effort. If you're in, let's plan something. And then this part is the secure part because I let their response be my answer. If it's clear and consistent, I proceed, right? If it's vague and confusing, I de-escalate. I step back because I'm not negotiating for the basics. And so, yeah, becoming secure is not one of those big moments. It's actually a practice. And once I learned that, the shift stopped feeling like a crisis and it started feeling like information. And that's what I wish that someone taught me earlier is that when you feel the shift, your next move is not to panic. It is actually to be clear. So let's walk through a playbook that you can actually utilize within the next 24 hours. So here's how it starts. So your next move is to get clear. So number one, let's pause the reaction. Not forever, not to play games. We're not here to play chess and they're playing checkers. No, we're doing this so that we do not make decisions from the pit of our stomach. Because when you're activated, everything feels very urgent. You need to text them right now. Like you need to know why. You need to fix it. And that urgency will have you doing the most. And so before you start sending anything, let's not post this real quick story to see if they're actually going to be looking at your story. No emotional outsourcing to somebody who hasn't even earned access to your nervous system like that. You're going to first pause, regulate, and come back to yourself. And this can look like a walk, like I said before, like a shower, journaling, voice note, even a prayer to Jesus, whatever you want to do. Meditate, call a friend who is not going to be hyping your spiral, who's not going to be like, yeah, I'm a yes girl, but they're going to hold you accountable for what it is that you're doing. So If I'm activated, I do not act. And that alone will save you so much confusion. Next, name what actually changed. Not your fear, not your conclusion, just the facts, because they don't care is the story. Their response time changed, they stopped initiating, and plans got vague this week. Those are the facts. And secure moves need those facts. So ask yourself, what changed? When did it change? Is this a one-off moment or a pattern? What have I actually observed, not assumed? This step matters because spiraling fills in the blanks with those imagination, like I mentioned before. And I'm not saying ignore your intuition. I'm saying don't confuse intuition with panic, okay? Now, this is the one. Name your need. Because most of us skip this part and go straight into the performance. So you need to ask yourself, what is it that you really need? Do I need clarity? Do I need consistency? Do I need reassurance? Do I need effort? Do I need a plan? You have to be honest with yourself because if you don't name the need, what you're going to start doing is trying to earn that need. You'll start overgiving yourself instead of asking. You'll start hinting instead of communicating. And you'll start tolerating confusion and calling it patience. And that's not something that you need to be doing. So say it plainly, even just to yourself first. My unsaid need right now is blank. Fill in that blank. That sentence can change the whole game. So now that you've regulated, named the shift, and named your need, you decide the move. And this is where discernment comes in because every shift is not the same. Sometimes people are genuinely having a hard week and sometimes life is lifing. So work can be crazy. You think about what's happening in the world right now. Family stuff is happening. They're sick, whatever. But the difference here is usually this. Do they communicate or do they leave you guessing? So ask, is this a temporary dip in communication or is this a pattern of inconsistency? Are they still showing effort just differently or am I carrying the connection alone? If it feels like a pattern, don't stay in silent suffering trying to decode somebody. That brings me to my next move, which is have one clean clarity conversation. If clarity is needed, have that conversation. You only do it one time. It's clear, without accusations, without over-explaining yourself, and without trying to force a specific answer. This is not a, you're acting weird. You clearly don't care about me. I knew this would happen. Why are you doing this to me? That's just pain talking. Secure communication sounds like this. Hey, I've noticed our communication has shifted a bit, and I just want to check in. I like you, and I move best with consistency. Where's your head at? That's clean, it's direct, and that gives them a chance to be honest. And if they say they're busy and it still feels vague, you can always follow up with, totally hear you. What does busy look like for you right now? And what kind of communication can you realistically maintain? And if you need a boundary, say that boundary. I respect where you're at. I just don't do well with guessing. So if consistency isn't something you can offer right now, I'm going to just step back. I want you to understand that this is not an ultimatum. This is just self-respect. And then I want you to do this. Watch what happens next. This is the part where people like to skip because we want that relief immediately. But after the clarity conversation, don't rush to interpret their words. Watch exactly what happens next. Do they follow through? Do they get clearer? Do they make plans? Are they even consistent? Or do they stay vague? Are they giving you just enough to keep you around, like breadcrumbing, or they flip on you for having needs? Because a lot of people will give you that language, but secure moves waits for the answer. I always like to say actions speak louder than words. And if the behavior lines up, that's great, but proceed slowly and stay grounded. And if it doesn't, you have your answer. So if the answer is inconsistency and vagueness or even breadcrumbing, you're going to de-escalate access, which means I'm going to step back, not to punish them and not to make them miss me. And it's not to run a strategy by any means. It's just to protect your peace. So this can look like not over-initiating, not being instantly available, not giving emotional access where there's no relational clarity, not continuing a dynamic that keeps activating you. And sometimes, yes, it looks like walking away. Because the secure move is not, how do I keep this? The secure move is this aligned with what I said I need? And sometimes the verdict is this is just not enough for me. And that's not being difficult. That's just being honest with yourself. So if you're in the space right now where nothing big happened, but you feel that shift, I want you to hear me that you're not crazy. You're not doing too much. And you are not wrong for wanting clarity because the work is not to stop caring. The work is just to care without abandoning yourself. So the shift is your cue to get clear, and your unsaid need deserves a voice and not a spiral. So this week, if you feel the pit in your stomach, don't panic. Just pause, name that shift, name the need, get clear, and watch your behavior. And lastly, choose that alignment. So if this episode resonated with you and you actually were able to find a little bit of clarity about those secure and spiral moves, share with another friend, but just know I'll be here and I'll speak to you guys next time. Laugh at the cringe, learn from the crumble. This is Cringe and Crumble. Until next time.